Ryan and I will definitely continue to talk to you about the next big thing that we have in mind. While we were doing the show, we actually noticed your message board and began discussing the exciting next steps, as well as taking a moment to say hello to everyone tuned in. Connie, I saw your question pop up and took the opportunity to have a chat with Brother Yusin for a little while. Then I turned around and moved on to something else that needed my attention. Hello, I appreciate your patience and will respond to your question shortly. However, today we need to prioritize discussing the current trend of our Hong Kong stocks first. This is particularly important because when the market opened today, it was heavily influenced by the futures market. The stock market has gone up by more than 500 points recently, indicating a significant rise in investor confidence. It has notably risen by 500 points in total. It can clearly be seen that both Xiaomi and Alibaba have already skyrocketed in value during this period. I wonder if this surge is connected to our recent activities. The attitude of the United States has been consistently correct and positive. Meanwhile, China has adopted a notably friendly attitude toward international relations. It's akin to offering an olive branch. This signifies that if we genuinely convene for a meeting, we will adopt a conciliatory stance towards our president. We will refrain from employing aggressive tactics and instead approach the discussion with an open mind and a willingness to collaborate positively. There is a possibility that many individuals will believe that once expectations are officially released, the United States tariffs imposed on Chinese imports will be significantly lowered. However, Eken, representing the US perspective, has also stated that even if such a reduction is feasible, it will not be decreased to zero. Instead, some level of tariffs will likely remain in place. It's not right to talk about this with each other, but I don't know how much the conversation will be reduced. The other problem is that, in fact, both parties haven't talked about much, nothing anyway. However, following the release of this significant news, our Hang Seng Index displayed a remarkably positive trend. Today, it rebounded impressively to reach 22,000 points. By the time the market closed, it had climbed to 22,072 points, marking a notable increase of 510 points. The current market turnover stands at approximately HK $260.6 billion. In regard to today's market conditions, I have recently opened it up for analysis. I've just reviewed the top 10 transactions and I must apologize for the mix-up earlier. I meant to refer to the top 10 gainers. Specifically, I am discussing the top 10 gains among the constituents of the Hang Seng Index today. The most powerful companies in the industry are Xiaomi, BYD Electronics, and Alibaba. Hey, let me check in with Ryan now. It appears some positive news has emerged indicating that the United States may potentially extend an olive branch to China in the near future. Hey, what are your thoughts on this current situation? How long do you believe the rebound in Hong Kong stocks might last, considering the market trends?
I don't know. How do you know how long the olive branch can extend?
Maybe it's one way or the other he treats you as a monkey.
What makes you sound bad is that you didn't eat peanuts originally, and now you are limited to eating 7 peanuts a day. Then he said, well, I'll have 4 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. Is that okay? The noisy monkeys think I'm a fool. Haha. 4 plus 3 equals 7. His monkey probably doesn't know how to add numbers. Yes. Then he said, hey, let me change the meal. Hey, I'll add 1 more pill in the afternoon, but you can help me and subtract 1 pill this afternoon. Yes. After enjoying a few bites of the meal, it seems like the atmosphere has gradually eased a bit. The current situation is eating. This outlines the specific negotiation strategy employed by the United States. However, the reality is that the tariffs will indeed be implemented and they will not be set to zero, so we can maintain some hope for potential future adjustments or changes. If it weren't for Dorothy, everything Rosen had done before would be meaningless. In fact, in the final analysis, he only had 2 goals: to control China's economic growth, or the development of some individual industries, was the first goal. We believe that the second point is that he indeed received some financial tariffs that impacted his overall situation significantly. If you decide to impose some tariffs, you cannot be too far away from the economic ground.
Dan means you want to buy a meal at Café de Coral downstairs. The voice of Dan may contain the following keywords:
The tariffs are indeed reflected in the financial statements of various companies, as well as in certain economic data. Historically, these tariffs have consistently acted as a negative factor impacting the economy. However, at this point, we don't have to worry excessively about their effects. Instead, we can focus on observing how long this entire situation will last. Consequently, the Hong Kong stock market is making efforts to maintain its profitability amidst these challenges. If you look at the chart, the resistance at around 227 above is probably greater. I received 22,000 yuan today. It tastes very good.
But there are 2 systems.
Is this the chess piece positioned here? Is this really the same as the hourly chart, or is it the minute chart instead? No, here comes the detailed map, but I will position it horizontally for you to clearly see like this. Yes. This specific area is identified as a gap. You can observe the upper limit of this gap, that is 226. The peak should be at 226. which corresponds closely to the 50-day moving average line and is approximately 27,000. Sorry for the confusion, I meant to say 25,700, which aligns with the 50-day moving average line. For now, I would say that the levels of 20,700 and 20,600 can become a short-term upward resistance.
Well, even if you only take a moment to look at this specific position, let's go down first. Ming has mentioned that Bitcoin is about to rise and we will talk about it later. But before talking about Bitcoin, I just talked to Brother Shen today that apart from Xiaomi, which we will discuss later, there is actually news today about BYD's 1211. In fact, BYD is actively involved in the market, and today a number of new energy vehicle stocks are all showing promising signs of rising. What BYD is discussing is a 3-for-1 stock split and a bold challenge to surpass the significant $400 mark. In other words, this move will effectively adjust its profit distribution plan, potentially benefiting shareholders and investors alike. The dividend amount will be consistently maintained, and a total of 8 bonus shares will be awarded for every 10 shares currently held. Consequently, this means 12 shares will ultimately be issued to the shareholders, so which option is it? Regarding your opinions on this matter, I suggest you all simply observe my actions, and I will make sure to keep an eye on what you write. Alright, that's all I have to say for now. Well, that's exactly what I mean. By issuing this bonus share, in addition to the number of shares that are issued from its own capital, the current total share capital of 3.039 billion will significantly increase to 9.1117 billion. In fact, isn't this a disguised way of splitting your shares while simultaneously diluting your earnings per share, ultimately affecting shareholder value?
You can grasp it by consuming it, akin to opening 3 pieces now. To simplify market entry, divide the process into 3 parts. Now it's 200,000 and you've become 60,000.
Yes. However, I believe that $60,000 is an acceptable amount. Honestly, I have no strong opinion on the matter. Yes, I have no particular thoughts on it, but I'm curious, what do you think about this news regarding BYD? What are your thoughts on its current trend or perhaps on other automotive stocks as well?
The share split aims to facilitate retail investor access to the market, but if you're hesitant about investing at $60,000, what does that indicate?
A little bit.
While 60,000 yuan may seem like a substantial amount of money to you, it's not really considered significant if I manage to save up some additional funds, right? Fewer memes would make having 6,000 mosquitoes better.
Will people choose to switch their investments between the bull and bear markets in response?
If you buy BYD, there are 2 distinct groups involved. Those purchasing it for speculation and those acquiring it for investment purposes.
Yes.
Well, usually, if you are not one of those people who sit and speculate and lose hard money, basically, whether you lose or not, you usually won't stay in the field for long because you are holding onto those crabs and just sitting there doing it. Well, it depends on what I said. But how much help does it give to its liquidity? Not much, not a little, but even if you say it is very big, it has not reached a level that is small enough to cause everyone to hype it up, because this is just a sufficient condition. Well, you have to pay an entrance fee, and the necessary condition is a catalyst. What type of hairspray do you have? Let's take a closer look at BYD. Yes, it indeed has several distinct brands operating in Europe.
Well, can't get in it.
Hey, try to get in. We were performing a show earlier, and I happened to be in Europe during that period. Yes, the overall environment in Europe is such that there are not a significant number of pure electric cars on the roads. In fact, it's quite limited, with very few available. Hey, do you actually have flat edges on the roads in Europe? I am from Germany, yet I feel it is not fair. Germany and Singapore are quite similar. Hong Kong is particularly costly. In Hong Kong, you can currently find prices below $20 if you're willing to accept it. Hey, in Europe, there is a 20% discount, about 30% to 80%. That's it. The euro is relatively expensive compared to the Hong Kong exchange rate. I'm fine with attending the formation. Now it's even more expensive.
Another issue with charging stations is that in Europe, every major highway is equipped with charging stations, particularly in Germany.
Well, there are quick plug options available for ease of use. You might say that these accessories aren't particularly effective or reliable, but I believe there are still relatively few pure electric cars in circulation, whether in indoor environments or outdoor areas. By the way, I have visited Frankfurt, which is renowned as one of the largest and most vibrant cities in the world, rich in culture and history. Well, it's a major financial hub, an incredibly important financial city. Well, actually, of course, Germany has specific laws that mandate you to obtain a permit before you can access certain designated areas. And this permit will also include regulations regarding your vehicle's emissions.
Yes, yeah.
Many locations in Europe are similar.
Hey, I didn't go to other countries this time, yes. Oh, Germany has all kinds of things. Because I drive my own car, so I have to read these laws. Yes, you need a permit before you can enter these places. But these are the problems that you don't have to have a pure electric car to have. You can easily reach most places by using a car. It's really easy to find a gas station. You can just turn on the GPS and you'll see it. Well, there are indeed significantly fewer charging stations available. It has changed. If you want to travel through the province, you have to drive a car at a certain speed. So you see those recent reports indicating that the 1211 model is manufactured by BYD, and they are currently reviewing their business strategies in the European market. I believe we should consider halting the sale of both the Sea Lion and the Sea Cannon, and instead focus on promoting the energy-efficient truck as our primary product offering. They are all actively seeking to hire several senior executives who possess extensive experience in the automotive industry, offering lucrative salaries to assist them in their ambitious goal of dominating the global market. Well, one of those individuals was Steve. I don't clearly recall if he was the CEO, but any senior executive certainly assisted him in his efforts. In fact, several of BYD's current vehicle models, along with their chief automotive designers, have previously gained valuable experience working for well-known large manufacturers in the automotive industry, which has significantly influenced their innovative design approach and engineering excellence. For example, Audi and other big manufacturers have changed their uniforms, but this is the design of the car. Absolutely, the design features of BYD's vehicles typically align well with the contemporary aesthetic trends seen in modern automobiles today. It's not considered impolite to take a leisurely walk outside, but if you're planning to head out for any specific purpose, such as shopping or running errands, you will need to visit the local market. This task truly necessitates the involvement of local residents.
Well, this will test his ability. In the past, BYD was not a company that adapted to the market well. Let's see how it performs, but for now, the market is waiting to see how its market entry strategy will be. After all, BYD's valuation itself is not particularly fair. It's pure and falls within a reasonable range, but it doesn't maintain a very flat position.
You're talking about the stock price? Hey, stock value. Oh, stock value. Well, it's fascinating to consider why it fluctuates. For example, if we talk about Germany or the UK, when I engage in conversations with my relatives living there, I notice they are still primarily driving gasoline-powered cars. So I curiously ask them why they haven't made the switch to electric vehicles yet. Did they ever inquire why I haven't made that change myself? No, he didn't directly ask for my opinion, but he did share with me some of the potential situations that might arise in his own home. He mentioned that while installing an electric appliance could potentially make his living space feel larger, there is also a significant chance that his neighbors may not appreciate the change. It's because I disturbed them by unexpectedly going downstairs. You have a very small reason for this, and the other reason is that you may have been driving a highway channel for a while. How do you play when you travel across states and provinces? And some charging stations are not enough, or you can't find any charging stations. In fact, he just knows these things. Am I an older uncle? Ha ha ha. I'm 5 to 6 years old and I'm very honest. The roads in Britain are good enough, not enough to charge. In the UK, the electricity system and charging stations are well established. During economic downturns, people are less inclined to change their cars, which is a significant consideration.
Oil can be purchased through channels at a reasonable cost. Britain should strive to be on par with Germany. Yes, indeed, that is correct. It seems that British oil is more expensive than gasoline by a few pounds, but Germany has reversed it and seems to have forgotten the pound.
If you happen to know how much it is, please kindly tell us.
Oh, I remember it was about this price per pound. Anyway, it was about $100. Both countries are more expensive than Japan, that's all I can say. The Japanese oil is denser than water, yet the water level remains the same. It's priced at 100 yen for a large amount and should be consumed slowly in small quantities, as it is very strong.
Certainly. Here's the expanded text. Well, after discussing BYD, I actually highlighted that several new energy vehicle stocks also experienced a rise in their values. However, when it comes to Xiaomi, its market positioning is somewhat ambiguous. It focuses on both high-quality products and a robust ecosystem that supports various devices and services. Hey, I'm not entirely sure what the car is like, but I apologize for any confusion. Xiaomi's stock has actually increased by 6.8% today. What specific factors contributed to this rise? When collecting, just collect 4.75 cents. What's the matter? Then I read some news articles and heard someone mention this incident. Actually, this was about Bloomberg. Bloomberg reported that his car had unexpectedly exploded in a shocking event before.
It catches fire or explodes right after you eat it.
Yes, the fire most likely started after the explosion, wouldn't you agree?
Will it ignite and explode first?
It caught fire and exploded first. Hey, would that be reasonable? Haha, I honestly don't remember the exact details and I'm not quite sure what the underlying logic is, but regardless, the traffic accident ultimately led Xiaomi to decide to postpone its ambitious SUV plan. The new product is expected to launch in June or July, but the exact date is undetermined.
I want to clarify if there is a causal relationship between the car explosion and the SUV launch delay, specifically which caused which.
It doesn't matter if I read the news, so what does it matter? People express themselves as they choose. It's not just about my desire to communicate, but how they convey their news. Yes, no, this one doesn't, that one doesn't, but I saw some yes, and there are some speculations. And some people familiar with the matter said that the annual investor conference originally scheduled for the end of April will be postponed to June. Certainly, Here's the expanded version of your text. Originally, the company announced that the highly anticipated YU7 would be released in June. For some time, fans and enthusiasts were both laughing and eagerly hyping its expected price to be around $50, comparable to that of Xiaomi. However, after carefully reading all the latest news updates today, I realized there might be more to the story than initially believed. That's exactly what I was referring to during our discussion on March 29th. Hey, let me read this news again. Hey, there is no reason. In fact, this is a news that you delayed for a while. For investors or for individual stock prices, I think it may not be very good news. No, your expectations can continue to last for a while. Last D series?
Is it possible that the two things are unrelated and the stock price is strong?
Upon further examination of the information, I discovered that Xiaomi's public relations department has already addressed this matter directly. They have categorically refuted the rumor suggesting that the listing of Xiaomi YUT will be postponed. In reality, this claim is simply not accurate. There is no basis for such speculation at all. U7, the system will continue operating from June through July.
It will be released soon, and you can take a look when it is released.
I'm not entirely sure if it's due to the fact that some individuals might notice this news and gradually decide to repurchase it. For instance, I've observed numerous comments suggesting that Cherry could be a good option, or perhaps some older forums are reflecting similar sentiments. In reality, a significant number of people are actively engaging in discussions about whether Xiaomi is still a viable choice in the market. Because the front row may be really hyped up too much. When it was around 50, everyone wanted to buy it but didn't. The back row was too high. When it reached 30 or so, everyone just stayed in the ditch and bought it. After they saw that they had a pair of socks, they would not talk. There was a position that could go up a little more, just 6 yuan.
To put it another way, if you are talking about purely rationality, I would not consider it at all. Well, everyone says that its valuation is very expensive. Yes, I do. But if the situation is reversed, you would think that if you find something sexy, you would feel happy about buying it. But if you buy it as a collection, it doesn't matter. I also think, how much has the Y17 helped you? Well, it doesn't really help much financially. The reason is, how much goods do you expect to deliver this year? Is it indeed true that the capacity of your current production line has already reached several 100% of its intended output? Furthermore, is it accurate that you have completely utilized all available capacity? If you are considering withdrawing some of the current SU7 deliveries, you might want to explore the option of starting a new SU7 production line to accommodate additional demand. Although the Y17 is just the SUV version of the SU7, you can't deliver everything without adjusting your production line. There must be and must need a new production line. One approach is to adjust the existing production line, which allows for immediate interactivity, in my opinion. Well, yes, that's true, but I firmly believe the atmosphere will definitely be very positive because I believe that the Y17 is likely to achieve great popularity in the market, and it truly stands out as the most sought-after model currently available at this stage. Sophie. Well, it's 2 decades, not just 1 decade. The market is the worst. The two are, one is the car model and the other is the price. It's not 2 decades. What I mean is 2 decades. If you examine the past decade, specifically from 2011 to 2020, and compare it to the upcoming period from 2021 to 2030, what would you identify as your most popular car models during these times? It must be an SUV. In fact, these vehicles are typically big, spacious, and comfortable for families and passengers alike. They were not particularly popular in 2011, but you could see them emerging in the market, and they reached a peak in sales and popularity after 2014. Yes, there was a strong desire for an SUV. At that time, electric cars were not as widely accepted or popular, but electric vehicles are naturally the most optimal choice for the future, especially since SUVs have the capacity to store and utilize electricity efficiently. In fact, the technology involved in making RVs is quite advanced. To store electricity effectively, the bike must have a low center of gravity and a flat design. Is it necessary to stir the electricity beforehand? Yes, SUVs typically do not experience this issue.
To ensure your SUV performs well, it's essential to protect its battery. While the SUV's high body allows it to navigate mountains and seas effortlessly, battery issues can arise.
You might find yourself in trouble. Many SUVs could potentially have various protective measures in place for their batteries. Let me share my thoughts with you. If you introduce a new car model, I will view it as large, cost-effective, practical, and stylish. Furthermore, if you position it as an electric vehicle, the market reaction will likely be positive, which I believe would ultimately benefit the company's stock price as well. Yes. But the fact is that it has fallen back a lot from its highs. If you add this factor, I think it is not too difficult for it to rebound. First of all, look at the position similar to the neckline around 52 yuan. In fact, there is room for upward movement. Determining if there has been a breakthrough depends on the market atmosphere, which must be perceived positively. The market's judgment is crucial and likely good, but the second step is to see whether you can deliver it to the channel and explain this to the market. Okay, as for the safety issue, I will just talk about the negative things in the news, but I still feel that the trams we always talk about are very dangerous. Trams will explode. Wow, self-driving is not a problem. We distinctly remember the very first thing that comes to mind. It's not about the electric car itself, nor is it related to the failure of automatic driving features. Yes, you heard it correctly. It's definitely not about you personally driving the automatic vehicle. Hey, why am I unable to unlock the car? He has insisted on driving with me for such an annoyingly long time. No, it's because he wasn't concentrating properly on the road. As a user, even when utilizing automatic driving features, you must always be prepared to take control of the system at a moment's notice.
But when you talk about it, I find it crazy that I have watched many films now that people in China regard autonomous driving as something like autonomous driving and then robots.
Yes, when the car was driving along the road, the driver himself actually fell asleep at the wheel, which was extremely scary. I believe that this technology is technically very safe overall, but you can't completely rule out the possibility that it might malfunction in some unforeseen way, yes. This list is particularly important as it addresses the accident caused by autonomous driving. Yes. In an emergency, he struggled with his Xiaomi car because he was unaware of its physical version, which he needed to unlock the car. Without knowledge from the owner's manual, he couldn't escape and ultimately faced a disastrous situation.
Is this related to the tram?
I don't think a gasoline truck will explode. A gasoline truck is flammable. A gasoline residue truck is safe. Do you all drive a gasoline residue truck? Oil residues are flammable.
The government currently prohibits driving gasoline-powered trucks.
What? Man! Trucks on the street carry oil.
Is the oil residue brand no longer available?
Well, a greasy private car. Oh, well, I should mention that technically Hong Kong will continue to issue gasoline-powered private car license plates, but the emission standards will align closely with those of California's strict regulations. Gasoline-powered private cars have historically lacked popularity in the US. Well, so basically no car startup can meet this standard, okay. To be completely honest, I find this situation a bit ridiculous. As in the European Union, it is quite common for private companies to sell oil residues. However, they must adhere to the stringent EU6 standard. Many car manufacturers meet the EU6 emission standards.
There are many advantages of using oil in cars. At least it is safer and not so flammable. That's it. You can wait and see about Xiaomi. Now it's actually only 4.74 cents. I saw a lot of selling orders pouring in when the market closed today. I will observe it slowly and then I'll continue. First of all, Connie has inquired about the BYD electronics, which currently has only 250 units available. This situation may be tied to specific policy issues. What exactly is the underlying reason? The recent issues mentioned above are of great urgency and require immediate attention. There is a possibility that China will decide to lower its tariffs significantly. It will be involved in negotiations, and you will have to account for this. Initially, you might end up paying around $245 or even $265, but ultimately you won't pay that amount. In fact, you will only pay about $125 or perhaps $135.
It's a little bit, you can transfer it to it, but because of some time ago, you have been doing telephone learning, so we should consider the same thing. That is, whether this type of shares can be replaced first. For example, you talk very well. Let me give you an example. It's just an example.
If you choose to import hats or caps from China, be aware that you will face a significant 320% tariff on all of those imported items, which can greatly impact your overall costs.
No one is here to introduce me. Can you tell me which factory and brand I am from?
Well, one system is to pass on the price to consumers. The other system is to source from manufacturers elsewhere.
Some locations may charge up to 120%, while others charge 50%. I would lower it by 50%, maintaining quality. Okay, but if there are things that only China can do, or if China has achieved a certain level first, then it would be different. Well, you can only refer it to consumers. We categorize this as a type of telephone learning. Actually, at this point in time, the supply chain for mobile phones and certain segments of the consumer electronics industry are among the most developed and mature. Naturally, some components and processes within these supply chains can be relocated to alternative locations. Additionally, some manufacturers are actively considering moving specific parts of their supply chains to different regions or countries in search of efficiency, cost savings, or to mitigate risks associated with disruptions. Well, at this moment, there is no alternative course of action available, but for the time being, your existing advantages still persist. This is the first point to consider. The second point is that we must examine the situation from a long-term perspective, although not too far into the future. Since they or the US government can change their stance, well, they can turn around and change their stance again tonight. Hello, I'm just joking. Connie arrived there first. Definitely a department. This situation poses a significant threat to the overall stock price. Yes, we can now take a closer look at the next chart. This chart represents BYD Electronics. Currently, its stock price is notably quite low compared to earlier this year. The current measurement has decreased to approximately 26. If it manages to rise to level 10 or higher, I can set my sights on achieving 40 as an initial target. However, in the near term, it will prove to be significantly more challenging to return to the previous highs of 60.5. Therefore, the question remains, is it feasible to reach the same target at any given level?
However, I will refrain from attempting it because I noticed the intricate cross-star pattern and what you just mentioned. In fact, the channel has the ability to jump back and forth, as well as leap forward and backward and move left and right, which means that each day brings a new experience. Therefore, I believe it would be wise for us to wait and observe the situation unfold gradually for now. Wait until they officially announce the specific percentage of that figure.
Will it be better if you slowly dig it back first? You want to speculate? It's just a guess. It's all a gamble. It's all a gamble. If the current trend has improved a little, you really need to find a position to gamble. The 10-day line is $32, okay? I'll give you a slightly higher water level channel, around $32.50 to $33.
Even at approximately $40 per share, there remains considerable potential for growth in the future. However, at this moment, I don't necessarily believe it's a stock that is worth investing in right now.
Okay, that's right. Actually, Sean Ming has already helped me take the money. The last thing I want to ask you is about gold. Regarding the gold issue, I told him my question first. People asked him a few questions. No, answer one first. I'll come back slowly. There is also a 992 and a 9660 I saw, but I can't put them in. Don't eat, we are just joking. I'll wait for him to take a closer look and then wait for the two to eat. Hey, we both said a little gold. Because I really want to talk to you today because I myself have never discussed this topic with you before, but why? Because I asked you this last time. The price I asked you this last time is already over 3,000. Can you please refund it? What do you mean? Retreat? I will issue a refund of 4,000 and that's my final offer. I then realized that in a way it reflects a similar principle. I believe that as gold is subjected to more heat, its value actually increases. Consequently, its price tends to rise gradually over time. However, I am left wondering why I need to return today just to discuss this matter with you. Now, the gold price has fallen after rising sharply because everyone has seen that the United States has softened its attitude towards China in various aspects, including tariffs. The risk aversion situation seems to have cooled down a little, causing gold to fall a little to 1840. In fact, it has fallen by 4%. 4.4% has finally arrived, so I'll take care of it right now. Apologies, but that's all I have to say for now.
He asked, to be honest, you can actually buy in batches now. Gold is now held and sold. Of course it is held, but there is a very important point, which is how much of your total investment it accounts for. I have to remind myself of this all the time. I don't know why I have so much life to do. Everyone is asking, is the world of Chinri truly different from the world we know today? Everyone seems to wonder, is it really? Your perspective may be different, but for now I think that what has not changed is that I am relatively more aggressive towards gold or have a better view of it. I believe reaching $4,000 in the first half of this year is achievable. While I can hold that value, it's important to consider how much of your investment portfolio it comprises. I recommend that ordinary investors keep their allocation to 20% or less. Well, the reason is that gold itself does not provide cash flow, which is not good for your investment portfolio. It simply assists you in defending your investments and helps you maintain the overall value of your investment portfolio effectively. Well, but that really doesn't help your investment portfolio grow effectively. Well, if we discuss it further, we could potentially transform it into 10%. He offered me around $5,000 or $6,000 and everything. But to be honest, even if you get to that position, you won't be twice as good, so it doesn't really matter to you. To get to such a high position, it may not happen in a year and a half, but it may take a while to get there. Yes, if your cash flow situation changes positively, your weight will likely not increase at all.
No, so I actually want to ask you this. Besides the fact that we have a compelling reason on the US side, which is that the tariffs seem to have been gradually eased, I've also noticed a significant development. I saw a news report today that President Putin, speaking on behalf of the Russian government, expressed that he is willing to engage in direct bilateral negotiations with Ukraine. This could potentially open up new avenues for dialogue and resolution between the two countries. What are your thoughts on this situation? Because actually what we are talking about now is that Forbes has ceased fire for 30 hours. But now that the fire has been ceased, in fact, the channel is right, it has passed, so it is right. Yes, it continues to have an open attitude towards the ceasefire. Yes, so Putin stated, oh, alright, it's better to be known as Putin and just Putin. Okay, Putin. Yes, that sounds good. The formal proposal was officially made. In fact, it was suggested on Monday to hold an important bilateral meeting with Ukraine. We sincerely hope to see if a ceasefire agreement can indeed be reached. If the fighting can truly be stopped, it would be a significant positive development. In fact, I vividly remember when the two places, possibly Russia and another nation, were engaged in conflict. During that period, I noticed that the stock market experienced a decline for a while. Interestingly, Bitcoin saw a significant surge and the price of gold also increased notably. On one hand, such significant news will undoubtedly have a considerable impact on the price of gold in the market.
That is, If there really is a ceasefire between the two sides, then there will be world peace. Will the gold not work? Yes. Will it? Does it make sense? Of course it will. But everyone wants world peace, so your investment portfolio will not be pure gold. While it will indeed be a negative factor, even if you choose to invest in gold, you certainly don't want him to keep fighting, correct? It doesn't matter. Yes. In reality, the same situation occurs when you emerge one by one. Picture this. You strike someone with a pig's head and a trumpet for a mouth, then urge them to reconcile peacefully.
Welcome 9 and Ardan Yang Yang CCC.
You just go and hit someone without any reason. That is, you first flirt with the person and then hit the person first. It's not as simple as flirting, you just hit them straight away.
Sure, I understand. I won't take the time to explain that. But there is this good news. Everyone can pay attention to the Russian side, and there is some data to be reported back.
Another important thing about gold prices is that the safe haven demand it reflects is not geopolitical factors. Well, no matter how you approach it this year, has the war situation in Europe shifted significantly? Actually, no. It appears that everyone has become somewhat accustomed to the ongoing conflict, continuing to engage in fighting wherever Russia is involved, and launching attacks and bombings in Ukraine during their periods of inactivity. Ukraine continued to fiercely resist the ongoing aggression, and during this time, the United States and Europe provided significant, albeit limited, support. This pattern remarkably lasted for 2 full years. Currently, there isn't any noteworthy news in your market. In fact, this lack of information is insufficient to serve as a catalyst for change. The real catalyst will be Sino-US relations and trade barriers, which everyone will care about, as well as the safety of the US dollar. In addition to Donald Trump's remarks on tariffs today, what is more important is that we have no intention of speculating on anything. Well, this actually restored some of the market's confidence because the market was actually worried about the same thing before. That is, the independence of the Federal Reserve was being interfered with. This will affect the US dollar. If the US dollar is affected, it will not be able to play its traditional safe haven role. So it seems that the price of gold has increased significantly as a result. The rise of the US dollar will lead to a natural decrease in gold prices. But for the time being, you can look at it from the perspective of some chart techniques, or even from the perspective of global political developments. It appears that there has not been any significant fundamental change, but perhaps only a temporary short-term respite has occurred. Well, so under these circumstances, I think the economy is still in an upward channel.
Certainly. Here's the expanded version of your original text. Well, when you discuss his comments about no longer selling Budweiser, it seems a bit contradictory as it fades in and out. Just a few days ago, he mentioned creating a buzz about him, expressing his desire to make him famous due to his immense popularity. However, today he abruptly stated that he no longer sells him, leaving everyone in suspense. So we will just have to wait and see how this situation unfolds in the coming days. Before we talk about stocks, we can talk about Comvita and other stocks later. But let's look at one more stock because of the Earth Horizontal Wireless Robot. Yes, Connie from Zhenghua asked me a few stocks, asked about 9660, asked about 992. We can talk about them.
Let's talk about 992 first. 92 is simpler. Okay, 992, if you look at the picture, a crack is a resistance. It looks like a positive one. Do you think his bones are particularly flat? For now, I think my conversation is reasonable. However, the market sentiment has significantly shifted. In fact, it seems likely to continue to underperform, which I find increasingly concerning. However, the fundamental aspects and performance metrics of the stock itself are not a cause for any concern. Well, of course, if your supply chain experiences significant disruption, the overall impact on them is actually quite large and far-reaching. But Lenovo is not feeling angry or upset. Instead, it is actively trying to transform itself. I am selling a comprehensive solution. In fact, this strategic approach will significantly help them effectively deal with tariffs and trade barriers in the long run. However, experiencing short-term underperformance is an inevitable reality. Well, okay, what's interesting about Horizon Robotics is that it was hyped up today, but in fact it had been falling for 5 consecutive days before. Look at its stock price. In fact, if you count the more than 3.8 cents, it has fallen. First of all, it has fallen from a high level. Well, this is a buy. An opportunity has come. Don't forget how much its listing price is, 3 cents. Well, in fact, it was previously speculated to be very high. It distributed the goods at a high position to the stone. 3 is here, 10. If you say $3 to $10, it was distributed back. Oh, in fact, this is the first and second thing. The release date was October 24th last year. What's today's date? April 23rd will be 6 months from today. Yes, it's been half a year, and I haven't read its prospectus because I don't have time. But usually after half a year on the market, the ban on sales will have passed, and then the products from other channels will start to be sold on the street. Speculation typically occurs before a stock goes public. Eating today's stir fry for one day may not suffice. Stocks may be speculated on for a few days, after which investors could choose to reduce their holdings. However, the decision to do so immediately is uncertain, as they might reassess its long-term value. This shift indicates a potential increase in market liquidity. Therefore, it is crucial to consistently monitor new stocks. After 6 months or a year, major shareholders might decide to reduce their holdings. You do this according to the listing rules. By that point, everyone will need to regularly monitor the sea-level situation at all times. The reason you haven't noticed these significant changes today is that the lockup period has not truly ended yet. Additionally, it's important to note that we are unable to purchase any robot stock at this moment. In fact, it is a stock that owns equipment needed by the automotive manufacturing industry. More than 90% of his total income is derived from the manufacturing of cars, which highlights the critical importance of this sector to his overall financial success. Conceptually, there are times when advancements such as autonomous driving technology, smart driving features, and other innovative factors may play a beneficial role in his business operations. However, individuals may not consciously consider or speculate on his contributions when there are various robot stocks and companies being discussed in the market alongside him. These are quite exciting, but for new stocks that have been listed for less than a year, that is, those that are about to be listed, I will look at them from a supply and demand perspective.
Hey, I want to ask you something because just when Connie mentioned this topic, I took a moment to look at their latest news articles and financial reports. In fact, I discovered that they have recently released their comprehensive annual report for last year, and impressively, their profit income stood at 2.384 billion. The year-on-year increase stands at an impressive 53.6%. The full-year gross profit, excluding any additional gross profit calculations, is reported at 1.841 billion. Furthermore, the full-year gross profit margin is a notable 77.3%. Regardless of whether these figures are considered favorable for the industry as a whole, they should truly reflect the overall stock price level in the market.
Because this is not new news. After all, you have to announce last year's performance before March 31st, right? Therefore, the market has effectively reflected these various factors in its overall stock price movements. Yes. Naturally, the most beautiful aspect of it is that it transforms negatives into positives and transforms loss into profit. Well, this development is undoubtedly the best thing for the market overall. It appears that your previous stock price has not accurately reflected a significant degree of positive reaction from investors. In other words, the most crucial factor for newly launched stocks is to speculate on potential airdrops, as the supply available in the market is currently relatively small. However, this supply will gradually increase over time as interest grows.
That's good. In addition, we can turn to the US stock market. In fact, the US stock market, the Dow Jones Industrial Average has already increased by almost thousands of points. Yeah, everyone knows it because something happened yesterday. Yeah, what is Trump doing? Certainly, here's the expanded version of the original text. Well, they are all actively discussing the significant tariff issue and whether there is any serious talk of speculation about and other related matters, and so on. The impact of these discussions has led to a notable increase of 1,160 points in market indices. In addition, the panic index has fallen back to more stable levels, and Chinese concept stocks have impressively risen by 33%, reflecting a positive market sentiment. Hey, the happiest thing that everyone is enthusiastically saying in the market today is actually very similar to what Pretty mentioned earlier, because I can get back 90,000 US dollars. Hey, it has unfortunately increased by 5 cents per unit. I distinctly remember it was 92,000 when I first entered the market. Now, the price of Bitcoin has dropped to only 2 yuan. That's astonishing.
My price is not 94,000, it's just because, it has increased very quickly. It is 94,049, and now the latest one is, it's too fast, so I don't need to scold you. There is no stock.
Hey there, I don't currently have any goods available, so I will open an account first. Yes, indeed, everyone is welcome to open an account with us and purchase some Bitcoin. However, I need to discuss a few points first. Why not answer it immediately? That's a very good question. I want to commend you for asking it. If you really like Bitcoin, why not consider buying some Bitcoin?
If you like Bitcoin, you have no reason to buy Combeth or buy some channels to hold a lot of Bitcoin shares. In fact, the number may not be enough. What about virtual assets?
I believe it's just a temporary situation, but really, why should I even say that? We cannot currently see the virtuality, but the assets are truly increasing. What we observe is that investment funds primarily flowed into Bitcoin initially, and subsequently, Ethereum, ETH, experienced a rise as a direct result. Well, this is actually a temporary one. Things have changed. And of course, you can definitely buy these related stocks. I think there are live broadcasts. You look at the picture of Coinbase, it's quite handsome, it's really amazing. But for now, if you want to buy the leading stocks first. It seems everyone is hedging their bets and purchasing Bkang. If you wish to adhere to the guidelines, simply follow Bkang. So the leader must be Bkang, so I definitely agree because it has the highest circulation volume in the market.
But if you really consider Bitcoin as your investment, then what if I really don't buy Bitcoin, even if I really want to talk to these two channels, such as Coinbase and MicroStrategy, then that's fine.
Yes or no? That is to say, if you were to compare the two options, which one do you ultimately choose? You can purchase Happy Beans, and if you can't afford 10 shares, you could buy just 5 shares, right?
Yes, I can buy one more share. Yes, haha.
That's right. No, they are almost perfectly synchronized in appearance, but if you believe that the two pictures are more handsome, then be sure to remember that. Yes. It's a photo of a good-looking guy.
Well, it's really not that good at all. Yes, when framed like this. Hey, that person known as Kang conveniently mentioned actually, hey, the 9th generation 949-425D is now back and available. Yes. Yes, take your time. In fact, if I had bought before, I would have bought futures and then take my time.
Why buy futures?
It's faster. That is short-term speculation. Why is it faster? It won't be a fast futures. I mean, I want to speculate on the fluctuations, but I don't have time to watch it, so I won't watch it anymore and won't play with Bitcoin anymore. That's it. Oh, perhaps I could consider purchasing some Bitcoin ETFs instead. No.
If so, please sync it with Bitcoin.
Oh, so you're right too, 1-to-1.
Certainly. Here's an expanded version of the original text. Yes, Grandma is certainly making quite a fuss about everything. All right, I can take a closer look at the situation first. I would really like to talk to you again. Today, there was an important news update from the IMF that I think you should know about. I'm not sure if you have seen it yet. She has 3 key points to discuss and share with you that may be significant. I just want to tell you that the World Economic Outlook report was released on June 1st. What about that? IMF is an international organization, the International Monetary Fund. For the next 2 years, specifically this year and the following year, the global economic growth is predicted to be around 2.8% for this year and approximately 3% for next year, showing a slight improvement. I distinctly recall that the statistic I examined turned out to be the second worst in terms of percentage when compared to the data following the COVID-19 pandemic. To illustrate, the situation was already quite dire in 2009, which marked the lowest point. Subsequently, the figure of 3% emerged as the second worst, ranking just behind the 2009 statistics, thus highlighting the severity of the situation during that period. To be more specific, it can be said that it is directed to the United States. Certain trade war issues will likely trigger significant supply conflicts, leading to increased prices and a reduction in overall productivity. Furthermore, if we discuss tariff issues with a particular trading partner, these tariff-related matters will significantly influence the business demand within that channel, which in turn may affect overall production levels and the prices of goods and services offered in the market. He even stated in a rather exaggerated manner that the global economy, which has been functioning for the past 80 years, is now undergoing a significant restart or perhaps even the construction of an entirely new system from the ground up due to various unforeseen circumstances that have emerged recently. This situation has significantly increased the risks facing the global economy. Obviously, the overall economic growth forecast for this year is only expected to modestly increase by 3%, highlighting the challenges that lie ahead for various nations. Certainly, here's an expanded version of your text. Well, the other significant factor contributing to why the economy is currently struggling so much is the ongoing tariff issue, along with the policies of the new leader in the United States. These critical aspects have collectively resulted in a reduction of this year's economic growth by 0.9 percentage points, bringing it down to a disappointing 1.8%. This decline reflects the broader challenges faced by various sectors in the economy amid changing trade dynamics. If you believe that everything appears somewhat pessimistic at the moment, then here is a detailed summary of his statement for your consideration. Furthermore, it has also been reported that the probability of an economic recession occurring in the United States has risen significantly by 40%, which translates to 40%. The current issues of tight tariffs and high interest rates are negatively impacting the United States, raising concerns about a potential recession. While reducing these rates could alleviate the problem, there is uncertainty about when or if such reductions will occur. Observations of economic data will determine the timing of any changes.
Many old men say that we don't just look at economic data. Yes, but I also think that the International Monetary Fund needs to look at a good report. Well, when will it be released? Actually, it's scary.
That means we don't have to do anything else. We just have to wait and see what the policy will be at that time.
It is important to acknowledge that you, the decision-making authorities, including both the government and the central bank, are not simply inactive. In fact, you are proactively implementing various adjustments aimed at positively influencing the economy. Hey, the IMF didn't predict that you would not do anything. They would have predicted it, so you would have had some appropriate response. What they are saying now is actually a warning to you. Hey, what are you going to do next? What specific kind of situation are you currently facing now? If the United States has its own channels available to implement some necessary adjustments, then the associated risks will be relatively greater. So try not to be overly pessimistic. I reiterate that indeed, people have the ability to adapt and make necessary changes based on the circumstances they face. The current global situation is very clear and quite evident. First, politically, the situation is increasingly shifting toward the right. Second, there will be mounting pressure on international trade. These two significant trends will become ever more serious over time.
Well, I think there is one specific part of his comprehensive report that I don't entirely agree with, which is that he mentioned the core status of the US dollar has the potential to be significantly shaken.
But why don't you agree?
He asked you repeatedly why I don't agree with the current situation. Yes, the problem is that if the status of your dollar is shaken, many currencies could collapse as a result of the domino effect.
Why is the US dollar and the Japanese yen like this?
Let me give you another example. Why is the British pound like this and why is the euro like this? What is the causal relationship?
Could it possibly be a question related to the exchange rate? Indeed, some individuals may have previously discussed the daily fluctuations in rates. So how should I effectively explain this situation later on to ensure clarity and understanding for everyone involved? I would like to put it in a more organized way. For example, maybe in the past when you went there, people would tighten the exchange rate to exchange it for US dollars. But the problem is, if you bought US dollars, is it different? Is it different? If you possess US dollars and your local currency has appreciated significantly, then in reality, individuals may not have gained any profit from the existing price difference. So the question arises, why do people continue to retain their US dollars despite this situation?
First of all, we need to clarify that this only affects the exchange rate, but not the confidence in the currency, and the currency itself will not collapse as a result.
I wonder when exactly will the currency collapse?
Core of money rests on trust and confidence.
Yes.
Do you know that in the past, our colleagues in mainland China would call the US dollar American dollars? Why do we call it American dollars?
People call me Q-Jin. Why is that? Because he used to be tied to a gold hook. After graduating from Breton Forest, I decided to break up with Kim for personal reasons. What does it mean to share the same goal? That is to say, if the US Treasury really has some gold, it can issue US dollars. Well, things have changed. It's the central bank, not the Treasury, but this central bank. You have changed. You are holding US dollars. You are holding US dollars, which were called US dollars at that time.
Do you really have a guarantee that you can receive gold? What is the basis behind eating gold?
Actually, no. What intrinsic value does gold really have? No, certain medicines do indeed contain specific drugs.
Hey, while gold may have some limited industrial applications or be used in small amounts for food packaging and decorative purposes, it's generally considered useless in practical terms, you know?
It primarily serves the purpose of being a currency or a means of storing value, and this fundamental function is unlikely to be undermined in the near future. Well, this one is gold.
Well, actually, what you mentioned is fundamentally based on your level of confidence.
Well, I believe that during that period, you individuals at the Federal Reserve were fully aware of the underlying nature of this situation. Consequently, since the value of the dollar was fundamentally based on public confidence, you decided to remove gold as a medium of exchange. This pivotal decision effectively led to the separation of the dollar from gold, fundamentally altering the monetary landscape at that time.
Indeed, to this very day, the US dollar remains a widely circulated and highly influential currency in both domestic and international markets.
Yes. What is the fundamental basis of eating?
Based on everyone's confidence in the United States, that's right, or confidence in the general nature of currency flows. So the necessary condition for the collapse of the US dollar is the collapse of market confidence in the United States. Well, is this truly possible? It is indeed possible, but considering what this particular scenario might actually be like, to be completely honest, we cannot fully imagine it right now.
But from a logical or reasoning perspective, there exists a possibility that this particular chance may indeed take place, and if such a possibility exists, you do not need to completely undermine your confidence. Rather, you can simply allow it to become slightly diminished or weakened.
When your confidence weakens, your confidence in the currency will naturally weaken as well. Yes, indeed, this is actually a significant concern that has been raised by the IMF.
For example, if confidence in the currency significantly weakens, some individuals may find themselves unable to hold on to their dollar assets anymore. If you decide to convert your dollar assets into other forms, you will inevitably be affected by the changes in the market. In fact, the overall attractiveness of certain dollar assets will diminish, meaning that investors will begin to view dollar-denominated bonds, including US Treasury bonds, as less appealing compared to alternatives. The cash flow of the United States, specifically the cash flow managed by the Treasury Department, significantly relies on the issuance of government bonds. This bond issuance plays a crucial role in influencing the overall financial system and economic stability of the United States.
Yes.
The influence driving this issue can be summed up with a statement like this. The United States undoubtedly has a strong motive to protect and defend the creditworthiness of the dollar, as well as to maintain and bolster the market's confidence in its stability and reliability as a global currency.
If you don't want it, could you eat some? Or you destroy the confidence in some non-US currencies, and most of the confidence will flow back to the US dollar.
After successfully destroying it, I will return back home. What is the solution?
Why does this happen? Because you don't have a choice.
Yes. Maybe I will. You either eat rice or noodles. No, you have to eat rice if you don't have noodles. No, maybe I just think some people may hold too much US dollars and actually they are very confident in the United States. So I think they will not rely on beauty.
I believe that they are unlikely to face a complete collapse. In fact, we cannot be entirely sure that the assets associated with the US dollar are genuinely as transparent as they are often portrayed to be. Who is the biggest creditor of the United States who earns the most US debt? The Ministry of Finance's biggest creditor is China? No, it's the Fed.
Oh, America.
The Federal Reserve is number 1. Japan is second and China is third. Well, let's take a much closer look now because this information is not based on comprehensive official data, but is rather inferred from some incomplete fragmentary official data.
However, based on several insightful inferences, the previous reduction in US debt holdings may not necessarily indicate a large-scale reduction in holdings, specifically by Japan and China alone.
What you mentioned is indeed correct. That is to say, the current risk associated with the US dollar is relatively low for the time being. This is primarily because several major holders of US debt are not significantly selling off their assets. Instead, they are merely in the process of reorganizing and adjusting their own investment portfolios to better fit their financial strategies. US stocks exemplify this situation. US treasuries and other dollar-denominated assets are experiencing a temporary increase in value. However, in the long term, if investors universally perceive that US monetary policy remains misaligned with market realities and that the country's economic development continues to face challenges, this could ultimately undermine confidence in the stability and strength of the US dollar. Such a scenario might lead to increased skepticism about the dollar's future as a global reserve currency.
Well, everyone can take a much closer and detailed look at what the upcoming trend of our major events will be, can't they? In addition, regarding the US stock market, let's take a closer look at today's market trend and its implications. For example, as I recall, today's index stands at approximately 9.45. The United States is set to release the PMI data for April soon, which could impact market sentiment significantly. Yes, if I remember correctly, everyone should take a moment to review the current situation and its potential effects. Furthermore, I will provide more insights and updates about this topic next week, so stay tuned for further information and analysis. The program will be moved to Tuesday. Tuesday is a small program. Remember to mention me to do the program. Yes, I will definitely post on Instagram so you can all take a look at it. Well, it's next Tuesday, and after that, it will be Wednesday again.
Actually, if you have any questions, can you ask them on IG?
Yes, sure. Yes, sometimes it really does. Oh yes, like that. But suddenly I went to some personal, and you can go to IG to ask. It's not okay to go to personal, but there is an IG system that you can DM. You can ask at any time or ask on the message board. I hope I can answer everyone's questions today.
The message board is open for everyone to leave messages and communicate instantly, which is positive. It's us. Remember to read it after asking.
You can read it if you ask first.
Remember to watch it after asking and continue following it.
Yes, absolutely. I will tag all of you next time. Please eat. There's really no need to worry. I understand. Okay, we will meet all of you here next time. So many of you. Goodbye.